All right, so saddle up, folks, because this deep dive, it's going to take us on a trail that's, well, let's just say it's a little less traveled.
Oh, yeah.
We're tackling a Reddit confession that's been making the rounds, and let's just say it involves a very unique kind of horseplay.
You know, what's really fascinating to me here is just how many different reactions this whole confession is stirring up.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you've got everything from people talking about animal behavior to even like the very nature of what we consider spiritual, you know?
A real rodeo of opinions out there.
Yeah.
The confession we're looking at today involves someone who claims to have had a spiritual experience with a horse.
With a horse.
In Thailand, no less.
Wow.
And the comment section. Oh boy, it's a wild ride. You've got people who are completely bewildered. Others are straight up outraged. And then there are those who are just like, is this person serious?
I mean, it really makes you think about why someone would even share something like this.
Yeah.
You know? And how we as a society grapple with situations that really push those boundaries of our norms and ethics.
Right. And to get to the bottom of this, I think we got to go straight to the source, right?
Yeah, let's hear it.
The poster, we'll call them Lard Throwaway 89089, to protect their identity. They talk about this past encounter they had with a calf.
Okay.
And some early exposure to pornography.
Right.
But then they go on to claim that they experienced mutual consent and this deep spiritual connection with a horse.
See, that's where things get a little tricky, right? I mean, the idea of a horse giving consent, it's just not realistic.
Yeah. Explain it.
Well, think about it. Animals don't have the same cognitive abilities as us humans, and they definitely can't express consent in the same way that we understand it.
It's like, you know, trying to teach a horse algebra.
Exactly. It's just not going to happen.
So how does the poster actually describe this spiritual experience?
Well, they talk about how they paid for this service in Thailand, where they could choose between a horse or a goat for this encounter.
Wow.
They ended up going with the horse, and they describe lying naked in the hay with it. And, well, things get pretty graphic from there. They even go into detail about the horse's anatomy.
Whoa. Okay, hold your horses there for a second. It sounds like the poster's trying to, like, romanticize this whole thing.
Yeah.
Using all these words like spiritual and love and mutual consent. But, command, this kind of interaction, it's sending up major red flags.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. The power dynamic here is completely off. I mean, the poster's totally imposing their will on this animal that can't give meaningful consent.
Yeah.
It's a complete disregard for the horse's well-being.
It's like trying to have a heart-to-heart with a tree.
Exactly. You might be pouring your emotions into it, but are you really connecting with another being?
Right. And then the poster goes on to say that they felt more love from this encounter than with any human partner.
Oh, wow.
It just adds another layer of woe to this whole onion.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder about their understanding of healthy relationships.
Oh, sure.
And what even led them to seek out this experience in the first place.
Absolutely.
And the story gets even weirder, believe it or not. The poster mentions that after this encounter, there was a show.
A show?
Yeah, a show that involved other animals, horses and goats, they say.
Okay.
And they describe it as this beautiful thing, even mentioning a speckled penis, which, I don't know about you, but that's not something I was expecting to hear today.
Definitely not something I had on my bingo card for today.
Not at all. But see, this show aspect, this brings in a whole other dimension to the story, right? Because it kind of suggests a larger context of animal exploitation. Like maybe these sorts of interactions are actually normalized and packaged as entertainment in some places.
Oh, absolutely. That's a very disturbing thought. It raises some serious questions about how these animals are being treated and, you know, where the lines get blurred when you're talking about profit and spectacle.
Exactly. And what's even more troubling is that the poster seems completely unaware of any potential harm they might be causing. They even link to another post where they actually brag about having this special bond with a cow.
Oh, boy. This lack of self-awareness is really worrisome. It highlights the danger of projecting human emotions and desires onto animals without even considering their well-being.
Yeah, you said it. It's like you can try to fit a square peg in a round hole all day long, but it's just not going to work.
Exactly. Luckily, though, not everyone's buying what the poster's selling. A lot of folks on Reddit are calling them out on, you know, the impossibility of consent, the potential for disease transmission, and just the unrealistic portrayal of animal behavior in general.
It's encouraging to see that pushback. I think it shows that people are becoming more aware and are really understanding the importance of advocating for animal welfare, even in online spaces.
It's good to know people are paying attention. One user, they go by Dun Factor, They claim to have some experience breeding horses and goats, and they just flat out call the whole thing unbelievable. Yeah, they point out that the behaviors the poster's describing, they just don't line up with how these animals actually behave in real life. And they even suggest that maybe the whole confession is fabricated for shock value.
Well, I guess we can't rule that out. I mean, the internet's a strange place, but whether the story's true or not, it definitely gives us a chance to have a conversation about, our relationships with animals, the boundaries of consent, all those important things.
For sure. It makes us confront some uncomfortable truths about human behavior, animal exploitation, and, the dangers of attributing human characteristics to animals where it doesn't belong.
And let's not forget about the health risks involved. Close contact with animals, especially in situations where hygiene might be questionable, that can really increase the risk of spreading diseases from animals to humans, what we call zoonotic diseases.
That's right. Another Reddit user, they go by Animals Exchange, brought that up saying, "This is how viruses are made. When will you people stop engaging in sexual activity with animals?" They even went as far as to suggest that activities like this are responsible for things like AIDS, chlamydia, and even COVID.
Wow. Okay. While those specific claims might be a bit overblown, the underlying concern about zoonotic diseases is totally valid. Engaging in these kinds of activities without taking the right precautions can have some serious consequences for both human and animal health.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that our actions have consequences that go way beyond ourselves, impacting everyone and everything around us. So here we are, folks. We've got this wild confession, a bunch of concerned Reddit users, and a whole heap of ethical and scientific stuff to consider. What's the bottom line? What can our listeners take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway here is the importance of using critical thinking, especially when we come across information online. It's easy to get swept up in a sensational story, but it's so important to take a step back, look at it from all angles, and really consider the consequences for everyone involved.
Don't just believe everything you read, folks. Question the narrative, think about the ethics, and be very wary of anyone trying to romanticize exploitation or abuse, no matter how spiritual they claim it is.
Absolutely. And never forget that healthy relationships with humans or animals are built on respect, understanding, and recognizing each other's boundaries.
It's about acknowledging that a horse is a horse, of course, and not just a way to fulfill our own desires or fantasies. It's wild to think this whole thing played out on Reddit, of all places. It really shows how the internet can be this breeding ground for misinformation, but also a powerful tool for accountability.
Oh, totally. In this case, it seems like the online community as a whole was pretty quick to point out the flaws in the poster's claims. Users with actual experience in animal behavior and ethics, they were able to step up and challenge that narrative, offer some real facts, and kind of set the record straight.
Yeah, it's like having this whole army of fact-checkers ready to go at a moment's notice.
Exactly. And I think it highlights the importance of being media literate, especially in today's digital world. We need to be able to look at information critically, spot those biases, and separate fact from fiction, especially when it comes to these sensitive topics like animal welfare.
Couldn't agree more. So, in a way, our deep dive into this, well, let's just say interesting Reddit confession has brought us back to some pretty fundamental ideas, thinking critically, sharing information responsibly, and engaging with the world around us, including those animal neighbors, in a respectful way.
You got it. And maybe this can be a jumping off point for our listeners to do some reflecting of their own. What does a spiritual experience even mean to you? Where do you draw that line between human desires and the ethical treatment of animals?
And how do we find that sense of wonder and connection with nature without resorting to exploitation or causing harm? These are questions worth thinking about, and I hope our deep dive today has given everyone some food for thought.
Absolutely. That journey of discovery, it never really ends. Stay curious out there, folks. Stay informed, and keep engaging with the world around you.
And until next time, happy trails, everyone.